The movie Sisu is out, which means it's time for my thoughts and review on this movie. As always, this video will contain spoilers, so if you don't want spoilers, then head over to my shorts or my TikTok and check out my one-take movie review on this movie. But without further ado, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, get your Eazy Apparel at shopeasyapparel.com, and let's talk about the movie Sisu. This movie is exactly what you think it is. It's a brutal and violent action thriller about a guy who kills bad guys in the most creative and gruesome way possible. Now, yes, I enjoyed it and it is a good movie, but there are some things that I just can't wrap my head around in this movie, but I'll touch on that later. So in this movie, we follow a man who is gold mining at the end of World War II, and once he finds his big chunk of gold, he decides to go take it into the nearest bank, which is like 500 or so miles away. But on his way, he obviously runs into some Nazis who want to take that gold from him, so he makes the clear decision to just kill them all. As always, let's start off with the good, and the clear winner and just overall strong point of this movie was the action. As I said before, the action was brutal. I mean, there are some times in the theater where people had to visibly look away because of how gory this movie is. Also, it was a pretty bad day to be a horse in this movie as well, but I will say that entire mine sequence was freaking awesome. I mean, he literally took a mine and threw it at a Nazi's head and he just exploded. But anyways, the action in this movie was awesome and over the top to the point where it was comical at some points. You really have to lean into that suspension of disbelief for this movie because some of the things that they pulled off were just downright ridiculous, but I'll touch on that later in the video. And the next thing that was good about this movie was the cinematography. And honestly, this is one of the things that 100% surprised me about this movie. I expected going in to get a bang bang, shoot 'em up, kill them all, blood, gore everywhere, but this movie was shot really well. There were a few shots in this movie that were just downright beautiful. And yes, this movie had a bunch of fast cuts due to the action, but when this movie slowed down, it was visually stunning to look at. And next up for the good I have is that this movie knew exactly what it was. Even though the action was over the top and just downright ridiculous at some points, this movie knew what it was and it dove into that. It didn't try to be something it's not or add things that didn't need to be there. It was a very self-aware movie and you could see that in some of the humor. And honestly, the humor was used well in this movie. It was kind of one of those things that they used the humor to kind of make fun of some of the things that happened in the movie, and sitting in the theater watching that just kind of made me laugh, and it helped with not taking this movie too seriously. And lastly, for the good, and honestly, I just wanted to bring this up because I thought it was a really strong point of the movie, but the subplot that they had for the hostages of the Nazis was really well done. Now, they didn't get much screen time, but their story arc throughout this movie, from where they started in the beginning to at the very end where they had the guns and they're going to get the revenge on the guy that our main character, Sisu, I guess I'll call him, left behind. I thought that was really rewarding and a really good part to this movie. And now let's get into the so-so. Now, this is pretty self-explanatory, but this movie didn't have the greatest story. But that is expected with movies like this, so at the end of the day, it's really not a big deal, but I thought I'd bring it up because this story is pretty much guy finds gold, guy decides to cash in the gold, Nazis get in the way, and guy kills Nazis. So obviously there wasn't much depth in this story. It was very surface level, but that's okay. As I said before, this movie knows exactly what type of movie this is, and if you're going to see this movie, you didn't come for a story, you came to see a guy absolutely obliterate Nazis in the most creative and brutal way possible. All right, now let's get into the bad. And yes, as I said before, this movie knows what it is. It pushes the suspension of disbelief to comical lengths, but I just have to say, at sometimes this movie was just way too over the top for me. And I get that that is what this movie was trying to do, but man, they were pushing it at some points. I mean, there were so many times in this movie where the main character should have died, but he gets out of it in the most ridiculous and improbable way. And trust me, I tried to get over it, but when you get your horse blown to smithereens and you just get up and walk away from it, I couldn't. But you know, I pushed my suspension of disbelief and I got past that. But when you proceed to light yourself on fire, jump in a lake, take one breath, go underwater, kill another guy, literally suck the air out of his windpipe, which I didn't even know that was possible if it is, that's where I draw the line, I'm gonna be honest. Now, did I think it was badass? Absolutely, but there has to be another more realistic way to get this guy to survive underwater for as long as he did. And don't even get me started on how he survived being hanged, but also during that scene, we did get the most plot convenient plane to ever exist. Okay, but now that I got that out of the way, next up for the bad is the third act. Now, I didn't think the fight scene in the third act was bad, I just really didn't like how we got there. And while I guess this kind of goes along with what I've been saying, but in the third act, this movie throws physics out the window like they're Fast and Furious. I mean, this man literally had to have the grip strength of Superman to hold on to that pickaxe that was stuck to the bottom of the plane. But at this point in the movie, it was one of those things that I had to just laugh at and keep it moving. But all in all, Sisu was a fun movie with tons of great action, no matter how over the top or how ridiculous it may seem. If you go into this movie just wanting to see creative and brutal action, then this is the movie for you. But those are my thoughts on the movie Sisu. Be sure to let me know what you thought of the movie down below in the comments. And as always, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, get your Eazy Apparel at shopeasyapparel.com. God bless, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.